Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this roundtable discussion, the first of several events that are part of our two-day symposium, Milton Alive at 400, Samson Agonistes and Religious Violence. My name is Jeffrey Shoulson, and I'm an associate professor here at the University of Miami in the English department. My colleague, Andrew Strycharski at Florida International University, and I have organized this symposium to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the birth of John Milton. John Milton was born on December 9, 1609, and died on November 8, 1674. His life coincided with some of the most tumultuous times in English history, times that brought with them major political, religious, social, and cultural upheavals. It was a period of violence and rupture, international strife, civil wars, regime changes, religious persecutions, class conflicts. Milton was no passive bystander to these events, having participated actively in pamphlet wars on volatile issues such as church government, marriage and divorce, publication rights, monarchy, and religious liberty. He served for a time in Oliver Cromwell's parliamentary government and was given the task of publicly justifying the execution of Charles I, a political act that sent shockwaves throughout continental Europe. And he was, of course, a brilliant poet, a writer of capacious imagination, extraordinary erudition, astonishing linguistic dexterity, beautifully musical sensibilities, and outsized ambitions, who worked in and reinvented a whole range of literary forms and modes, from the pastoral elegy to the court masque to the sonnet, from the epic to the dramatic. In a book timed to appear in conjunction with this year-long celebration of the anniversary of Milton's birth, Nigel Smith provocatively asks, "Is Milton better than Shakespeare?" Without presuming an answer, I think it's important to frame the conversation we're about to begin by taking note of how central a writer Milton remains to the formulation of the terms of some of the most pressing problems facing us in the early 21st century, particularly for our purposes today, the troublesome convergence of religious conflict and violence. Though our panelists will be focusing their remarks on Milton's drama, Samson Agonistes, the complex relationship between violence and religious belief is a key feature of Milton's writings, from as early as his ode on the morning of Christ's nativity, to his great pastoral elegy Lycidas, to his epic poems Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained, not to mention his theological treatise, the De Doctrina Christiana, and his prose tracts against the English prelacy, or in dreaded anticipation of the restoration of the English monarchy. We're very pleased to have such a distinguished group of scholars here to share their thoughts, and I'll take just a few more moments to introduce our panelists, who represent successive generations of some of the best scholarship on Milton and his times. Stanley Fish is the Davidson Kahn Distinguished Professor and Professor of Law at Florida International University. Prior to his arrival at FIU, Professor Fish served as the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Illinois Chicago, as Chair of the Department of English at Duke University, and as a member of the faculty at several other institutions, including University of California, Berkeley, and Johns Hopkins University. He's the author of numerous scholarly works covering a wide range of fields and disciplines. It's safe to say that his writings on Milton are among the most influential of the last half-century. His 1967 Surprised by Sin, the Reader in Paradise Lost, marks an absolute watershed moment in the history of Milton's studies. His 2001 volume, How Milton Works, can well be said to have sparked the controversy over Samson Agonistes and his relationship to terrorism that prompted the theme of this panel. Faisal Muhammad, down at the other end, is Assistant Professor of English at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He's the author of the wonderful 2008 book, In the Anteroom of Divinity, The Reformation of the Angels from Colette to Milton, and numerous articles on Milton, religious violence, and political liberalism. His stunning and provocative essay, Confronting Religious Violence, Milton's Samson Agonistes, was awarded an honorable mention from the PMLA's William Riley Parker Prize in 2005. John Rumrich, next to Faisal, is the author of several very important books on Milton, including his 1996 Milton Unbound, Controversy and Reinterpretation, which I can say personally forever changed the way that I think about Milton criticism. Most recently, Professor Rumrich has served as co-editor of the newly published Random House edition of the Complete Poetry and Essential Prose of John Milton, which has already become the new standard scholarly edition. Regina Schwartz is Professor of Literature, Religion, and Law at Northwestern University. In scholarship that engages profoundly in questions of justice, her writings offer an important embodiment of the ethics of literary studies. She's the author of several prize-winning and influential books and essays, including her Remembering and Repeating on Milton's Theology and Poetics, The Curse of Cain, The Violent Legacy of Monotheism, and most recently, Sacramental Poetics at the Dawn of Secularism, When God Left the World. She has served as president of the Milton Society of America and as co-director of the Newbery Milton Seminar. Suzanne Woods is Distinguished Visiting Scholar at the University of Miami. Before coming to UM, she taught at Brown University, Franklin and Marshall College, where she was vice president for academic affairs and dean of the college, and Wheaton College, where she was provost. Professor Woods' groundbreaking work in the area of early modern women's writings and her direction of the Brown Women's Writers Project have led to a genuine tectonic shift in early modern literary studies. She's written and published widely in the fields of women's studies, feminist literary criticism, and early modern literature, and her current project is a book on Milton and the idea of freedom. So our procedure will be as follows. Each panelist will offer some brief preliminary remarks, and by consensus of the panel, we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, after which we'll open things up to allow panelists to respond or pose questions to other members of the panel, and at that point, we'll also open the floor to comments, questions, and observations from the floor.